Thank you, choir. Thank you, Anam. Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual, works of love. My mother and my sister are Episcopalian. If you know anything about that tradition, it looks a little bit different than what we do, but not a whole lot different sometimes. The dresses are a lot prettier on their clergy, and ritual is very, very big in the Episcopal Church. So we once had a sermon from a very elderly priest. He was 93 and still working, and he started his homily once by saying, "I've heard about the trend of being spiritual and not religious. I am religious, but I am not spiritual." And what he meant was, and I think what we often think of when we talk about religion, right, is that he was about gathering in community that had a shared understanding, shared values, shared movements, shared practices, right? That it was not about an individualized faith or spirituality. He was about community, and he was about ritual and routine, which we often talk about when we talk about religion with a capital R. So as Rita has brought up, what we're trying to share is that we don't think or believe that religion necessarily means belief in something supernatural or some sort of higher power. In fact, one of my favorite definitions of religion, with a capital R, or to be religious, comes from the Humanist Manifesto from 1933. This was a group of atheists, agnostic humanists, scholars, and some ministers who wrote down this manifesto in the era of the burgeoning in-between the world wars era. They saw what had happened in World War I, and they wanted to respond to it without a need for God with a capital G. So they wrote this beautiful manifesto, and in it they used the language of religion is loyalty to life. Loyalty to life. There was one theist, at least, who signed that humanist manifesto. He was a universalist. His name was Clinton Lee Scott, and he was the minister of this congregation. Not at that time, but later in his career. He was the minister here. Religion is a loyalty to life. Those humanist manifestos inspired Unitarian Universalism, and it inspired another great Unitarian Universalist thinker whose name was Forrest Church. He was a minister in New York City. And he talked about religion being our human response to the fact that we are alive and that we have to die. And that religion is the response to that duality of being alive and having to die. And it was that finality of life, the finiteness of life, that imported meaning into life, that gave religion its power and process, that made the ritual and routine important to people. And I know for me, that it is that finiteness that also makes everything spiritual. That everything we do as human beings is spiritual. When we walk through the rain and feel it on our face, when we listen to the birds in the trees, when we lay down on a soft bed or on the hard ground, that everything we do is spiritual. Every conversation with a stranger is a chance to entertain angels. That every good deed is a chance to bend the arc of justice. That breathing deeply and eating chocolate and laughing by the fireside is all spiritual. And it's also all religious, with a capital R. My deep-seated belief is that everyone is both inherently spiritual, because everything is spiritual, and that everyone is religious, with a capital R. Because to be human is to be alive and have to die. And that we are primed towards community, towards connection, towards creation. That is our natural impulse, right? That started way back when we were crawling out of the muck and forming communities for as long as humanity can remember. That being together meant safety. That being together meant structure. And that being together meant sometimes you get on each other's nerves. And it was religion that was part of the forming of those communities and how we interact with one another that gave us rituals and routines for how to do life. That it was not just about belief in something supernatural. It was about acknowledging our relationship with something outside of ourselves, something greater than, something bigger than. Maybe that's God with a capital G. Maybe it's your community, your family. It is not about belief, but it's more like gravity. It doesn't matter if you believe in it. It's going to affect you. When I read Theodore Parker's words, may our religion be like sunshine which goes everywhere. Right? It's a beautiful metaphor, and I would love to update it to may our religion be more like gravity, which affects everything at all times and all places, and is one of those most mysterious and powerful forces. And between gravity and love, I don't know which is the better metaphor for our religion, but I do like these words called impassioned clay. This is also in our hymnal. Deep in ourselves resides the religious impulse. Out of the passions of our clay, it rises. We have religion when we stop deluding ourselves that we are self-sufficient, self-sustaining, self-derived. We have religion when we hold some hope beyond the present, some self-respect beyond our failures. We have religion when our hearts are capable of leaping up at beauty, when our nerves are edged by some dream in the heart. We have religion when we have an abiding gratitude for all that we have received, and we have religion when we look upon people with all their failings and still find in them some good. When we look beyond people to the grandeur in nature and to the purpose in our own heart. We have religion when we have done all that we can and then in confidence entrust ourselves to the life that is larger than ourselves. The words from Ralph Helverson. That loyalty to life that is larger than ourselves. Last week we talked about spirituality and dark matter in the universe. So if you've not heard that one, I invite you to go back and listen to it. But this week, we're not talking about dark matter, but we are talking about the origins of the universe. So I want you to go back in time with me, 13.8 trillion years, to when all matter in the universe was in something called the singularity. Before the Big Bang, this great explosion of light and energy and gravity and perhaps even love that sent everything streaming out into the cosmos, onward and upward forever. Before that, the theory is that everything that is now, all of the atoms that make up the stars and all the atoms that make up you and me, was all together in this one very tightly bound ball of mass. One single thing. And that all matter, ever since then, has been finding a way to reconnect. That our impulse to create community and beauty and to connect with one another is deeper than a religious or spiritual belief. It's at the very foundations of everything that is. To be reconnected. Matter recognizing matter, atoms recognizing atoms and saying, oh, I remember you. To be reconnected. The ligaments rejoined together. Re-ligament. Religion. Did you know that's where we get that word? It means to be reconnected. Friends, we are drawn towards togetherness to make something larger than ourselves from our very foundations. When we come together in UU spaces and we lift up these central guiding values of justice, equity, transformation, interdependence, generosity, and pluralism, when we share those truths that love is at the center of all that we do, not only are we being spiritual, we're being religious. We're doing religion. We're getting religion, if you're familiar with that language. when we live into our deepest values that connect and create, that remind us of our loyalty to life with a capital L, we're doing religion with a capital R because of this great love with a capital L that is at the center of all that is. So when I talk about being spiritual or religious, I'm not asking you to claim to be spiritual if you're not. I'm not asking you to believe in religion with a capital R if you don't. But I am asking you to have some loyalty to life and to be open to something outside of yourself, because I think that's your natural impulse. And I'm not telling you that you are spiritual or religious if you think you're not, but I am going to treat you as though you are. Because I believe that to be loved and worthy of love is to be a spiritual being, and to be human is to be religious. It is fundamental as breathing to us, to find connections to something outside of ourselves. And I confess that loyalty to life and a desire to nurture wholeness in myself and in this community. And I hope and pray that that be so, because God knows the world needs it. Amen.